Iron City built. It's time for the Steel City Nation podcast. Here's your host, Mark Mendelelevitz.
Hey, Steel City Nation. My guest today is a rather unique athlete, especially the sport he plays. His name is Mark Mendelevitz. He plays for the San Diego Growlers of the American Ultimate Disc League. Mark, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Really like seeing you. Glad you could make it. I think what you do is probably one of the unique sports across the country. I know I was in Florida this summer vacationing, and on the TV down there, they had the AUDL playing on the TV. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, which made me think I need to reach out to somebody, get them on the show, and let's educate the public a little bit about what the American Ultimate Disc League is all about. So I'm really glad you could join me. Let's start out with this, Mark. Talk a little bit about your passion for sports. I know you probably have a wealth of things that you're interested in, and then tell us what led you to playing Ultimate Disc. Cool.
Well, first of all, I'm competitive as hell. I know you had a lot of you've had professional athletes on here, you've had D1 athletes, everything in between, whether sports has or hasn't been their entire life or the majority of their kind of driving force. I'm competitive as hell. I like to, if I'm going to get into something, I want to jump in entirely. But I also want to have a good time. Enjoyment's important to me, whether I'm playing, whether I'm coaching, whether it's part of the community I'm part of. Win at all costs stops when you start being a knucklehead, when you start breaking the rules, when, et cetera. So being competitive and working and improving as an individual, as a team, is super, super important to me. Passion for sports. As I've gotten a little older, I've gotten into the strategic side of things. So not just, here's the ball, there's the end zone, run as hard as you can and repeat, which is always a great way to start it off with 10 and 12, 15-year-olds. But I find that I've kind of, my own journey, I've married the efforts of training and kind of understanding how the game flows with the strategic side of things. I'm happy to explain how Ultimate works, and we can kind of build some parallels for your audience, which I presume is 90% Pittsburgh Steelers fans.
Really?
Okay. Well, we'll draw some parallels and we'll talk about it. But like I said, I just like working.
My objective is to reach out to a wealth of different people from all over the country. I've had all kinds of different guests on, like you said. So, we do a lot of Steelers stuff, but we also do stuff with people from Maryland. I've done some people from the West Coast as well, athletes from Florida. So we're in the infantile stages.
You're growing rapidly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mark, what was your favorite sport growing up and why?
Growing up's a good one. It was either football or soccer. I watched the most football as a kid. Growing up in DC, born in 1990, the atmosphere around DC was a football town.
Yeah.
It's not that anymore. Thank you, Dan Snyder. But it was probably majority football. I was a little better sized for soccer. I played plenty of soccer, early years, preteen, et cetera. And then, played up into high school football, but we'll say 50-50 split, football and soccer.
So you've been playing all your life. Who impacted you early on? Like who was that influence when you first started playing?
I had a couple coaches who really got me going and kind of got me focused. I was one of those kids who ran before they walked, as like a baby kind of thing. So I had a lot of energy, a lot of movement, and not a lot of focus. So I had a great elementary school soccer coach, who was actually my podiatrist also, because that's who you find at the JCC. I had a great basketball coach, Coach Andre. We played in Wheaton, rec league stuff.
Yeah.
And then, moving to high school, all the other kids, they started to get taller, and I did this. And so I played a couple years of football, one year for Coach Baker and 1 year under you, who kind of, like I said, funneled that energy and formed it into a little more maturity, a little more technical, focused my efforts. So that was it growing up. And then not a whole lot of coaching. Not a whole lot of coaching personalities around me, getting out of high school, getting into college, and graduating college. But I know that I've been kind of stumbling and finding my own way. So whether it's, finding workout partners in the same city, messaging random people. I had a travel job for a few years. I would message people in the city that I was traveling to go work out 1, 2, 3 times a week, whatever I could manage. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah.
So you went on to Florida Tech, obviously, rather, your objective was to do well in college. Engineering, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So as I was, I played a little bit of football, played some basketball in grade school. The majority of my focus was on, well, not about focus on school, but I did, extracurriculars involving like model rockets and like Lego robotics and stuff. So that I took that path and continued it on to engineering.
How about when you got to college and you started participating in sports there? Did any coach impact you? Was there a guy that was like, hey, let's you built that bond with them? Here, do it this way, Mark. I can see your skill set getting you to where you want to go if you go this direction.
Apologies in advance if I'm missing anyone, but not quite. There were coaching roles, there were mentor roles, but being a club sport at a D3 school, we're NCAA Division II equivalents, like 5,000 students ish. I had the older guys, so as I was a freshman and they finally wrote me onto the team, the older guys, whether they were seniors, whether they were like recent graduates who kind of hung around town, some working, some not. There would be the tough love, you got to always haze the new guy. And then there would be the sincere, we see this kid, he gives a damn, he may or may not have a little bit of talent, but he gives a damn and he wants to get to the next level. And he's always asking questions. He's always dragging us out to go throw and to go run, et cetera. So I definitely had some older guys who leaned on me, I guess, and kind of help funnel me and help continue that maturation process.
Let's talk about what ultimate frisbee actually is. What do you compare it to for our listeners? Why'd you pick that sport? It
kind of shows me. So I can go in 2 ways with this, and I'll draw mostly football and basketball parallels. So from a top-down view, it's on a football field, and I'm gonna stick to the professional game. The collegiate and club game is a little different, but generally the same. It's a little smaller field. So the professional game is on a football field, 53 yards wide, and the end zones are 10 yards longer. So you got 2 pairs of 20-yard end zones with an 80-yard playing field. You've got 7 on 7. And the game starts with what's called a pull, P-U-L-L, which is basically a throw off. So you're behind the line, same kind of kickoff rules for football. You have your person who can throw it really far, or maybe, throw it really high in the air so it's hard to field, similar to like a kicker has those kinds of skills. And, you throw it off, and as soon as the person goes and throws it off, then all 7 can go run down and play defense. When you have the disc in your hand, the frisbee, but we call it a disc, you can't move. So you can come to a stop. I know a lot of people are familiar with kind of PE rules where you have 3 steps. It's more of gentleman's slow down. So you have to decelerate almost immediately. Obviously, if you're running, if you're sprinting, 3 steps is kind of impossible to stop in, but you can't change direction. You can't like take extra hops or anything. And so you have this dynamic where you have one person at a time who can't move, who can use a pivot like basketball. 1 foot's planted on the ground, and they can be throwing any kind of angle. They can be throwing on the right side. They can throw on the left side. They can throw overhead. And you throw the disc to the other teammates, and you work down the field and score in an end zone. And you have to catch the disc in the end zone. You can't run in like football where you are, you have kind of out of and inside states.
Yeah.
There's what's called a stack, which is kind of similar to like a basketball stack coming from out of bounds. But I like to equate it more to a moving line of scrimmage. You can split the stack on 2 sides of the field. You can go horizontal or vertical. You can load up one side. You'll see like bunch formations to draw defenders away. You'll spread 5 out to, empty the box. The same kinds of things occur in Ultimate. if you want to, direct the defense to go over here. Maybe you want to attract them with a big receiver on this side and you're going to work the other side of the field. So there's different lots of schemes. There's zone, there's, one-on-one man defense. Similar schemes in like,
I mean, when you start talking about a lot of different formations and making the defense adjust to you, I mean, you're talking about, as much as basketball, it's just as much football.
Yeah, it's the constant motion of basketball where, if there's a steal, you're now on offense, you're now on defense. So it's a little different in football, where your superstar, you're Tom Brady, you don't really want the guy on the field for defense. You can't have too many liabilities in that sense. I'll talk about it later, but the game is specializing, as any game does after, a few dozen years after it's getting out of its kind of adolescence. So specialists are important. But, like I said, there's different formations. And as you're flowing between offense and defense, I know you're a big fan of, what do you call it? The intelligence, lineman intelligence, we'll call it. I find that's a good corollary to ultimate. So it may look like you got a moving line of scrimmage and there's like a route to be run, 1, 2, 3 moves, and you get open and you try and get into open space and, advance the disc similar to a receiver doing, their job. Right. But the fact that there's no stoppage, there's no intervals, of plays, is that you've got this constant motion. So imagine if you had, let's say, a line of scrimmage and now, your bunch formation's on the right hash and something happens, some misdirection, whatever, the ball goes to someone. And by the end of the play, your bunch formation, maybe even 4 players are now on the left hash. Okay. So you've got this kind of flow to the game where you might stack the offensive cutters, which we call receivers, on the right side, and they might be making moves. There might be some misdirection, or maybe you'll just throw to your fast guy. And now everyone's all of a sudden over here. So you've gained 20 yards. All the receivers are now on one side and the game doesn't stop. Someone else might have the disc to throw it, a new quarterback, and we see a little bit of that with like Jarvis Landry kind of thing. They're cute plays you see 1 or 2 times a game. But where this folds into the lineman intelligence is that you've got to keep reading the field. If your defender rotates around you and they're guarding you on this side and they rotate around you because they're scared of the deep throw or they're scared of the under or they're taller than you, you've got to be dynamic within the same point to adjust yourself. So the playbook might say do this, but if my player is playing me underneath, I'm just going to go deep. So a lot of dynamic, a lot of changing, a lot of rules of thumb, but a lot of it is, the kids I've coached before, I tell them there's tools in your tool belt, right? So I can't tell you every single situation, but here's some tools. You're going to learn some tools, and these are going to guide you, and you're going to have to use these tools on your own.
I use the same analogy when I teach, when I coach too. You just build that tool belt up of experience, and you roll with it from there. Hey, let's say I'm playing and I complete the pass to you 15 yards down the field.
Yeah.
Okay. You assume the role of the quarterback at that point, or do I hustle down to you, take it from you, and we take off again?
Well, that depends. Do you trust me to throw? Yeah, right. So we have 2 primary positions on offense, at least. And there's smaller delineations we can break into, but there's what are called handlers and cutters. And the handlers are the more disc skilled, generally quarterback-like players, right? They're valued for their throws.
Okay.
They're valued for what they can bring to the field. What they can kind of influence the defense to do, right? If you've got a guy who can jack the disc 80 yards, defense has to respect that.
Yeah.
The cutters are more like receivers. So you might have, like I said, we're specializing. So you might have your really dominant, speedy person who's really good side to side. You might have your tall athlete who's good in the air, and he's going to come down with any kind of 50-50 ball, your Megatron. And now where this kind of falls apart with the analogy is, I guess I'll move into basketball, where this falls apart in the analogy is that when you have the disc, you are now the only person who can throw. So sure, you can throw the disc to me, I'll gain 20 yards, and then you go rescue me and I give it back to you and I go run downfield and do my job because I'm a receiver, I'm a cutter. And that has its place, but what you've also done now is limited my role. So I am now no longer trusted to throw or empowered within the offense throw. You are no longer a player who would be moving downfield, attacking open space, creating open space. You're less dynamic. As well as your player number 7, as soon as you throw it to me, you're out of the picture. You've only got 6 players who are active on the field. So you don't really want to artificially limit your offense. So I can throw the disc on the field. I might have less capabilities than you. You might be you might be the Tom Brady, right? The precise guy who can throw it deep in once in a while, but really has the ability to just anywhere in 45 yards, he's going to throw it on a dime. Doesn't matter how close you are as a defender. He's going to put it there. Nothing you can do about it. You might have another handler this guy is just going to jack it. Brett Favre, he might not be so, have as much nuance, but if you give up 3 steps to a receiver, points over. There you go. They've scored.
What's the ideal athlete then going into this? You need to be multi-talented, right? You need to be able to go up and get the disc. You need to be quick off the line of scrimmage and have that agility to get away from your guy. And then you need to be able to chuck that thing about 40, 50 yards to be a good throw.
Yeah. You need to be able to hit and, accuracy, precision, 20, 30 yards. Not everyone needs to be a handler. So you'll find this, especially at the pro level, at the higher level, we'll call it trust, but they don't really empower or suggest that the non-handlers throw it, So if I go on there, I'm a rookie, I don't play a whole lot of offense. Maybe I'm a cutter or just a pure defender. If I catch the disc and just throw it 80 yards, that's not exactly my throw to throw, as it were. So getting back to remind me of the question. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked.
No, I was just saying, you want a multi-dimensional athlete there, basically.
Yeah, the best type of athlete. Yeah. So, unfortunately for my hulking 5'6" frame, the best athlete is ideally in the sport. And again, we're kind of it's moving into self-selection, as you see in football and in basketball. We're decades behind, but is your kind of long, lean, almost track bodies, a little more meat than track. We'll say, like a small forward or something like that. Long and gangly. We're all throwing athletes, so that's something you won't see. In something like football, where you've got only a few throwing athletes. You've got like I said, your Jarvis Landrys and your kickers and punters who occasionally throw the ball, and maybe some were a quarterback in high school. But the majority of ultimate players need to be throwing athletes. They also need to have good endurance, right? So there's lots of former track athletes, but it's a lot more a sprint and recover than it is get in third gear and go for 100 miles. So the sprint and recover is important, whereas our sprints are a little longer and our recoveries a little longer than slower than something like football, where you've got 3 to 5 seconds of absolute all-out sprinting followed by a minute-ish of recovery.
Yeah.
But being short has its advantages. I'm a little better side to side. I've put on a few pounds so I can push around someone of like a comparable height who doesn't have the same meat on their bones. So, boxing out's a great skill in ultimate, whether it's for a floaty pass or whether it's just, the equivalent would be like at the line of scrimmage. If you're going to try and bump a receiver as a cornerback, you want to have some meat on your bones so you can push this receiver around. But like I said, speed's important, agility is important, recovery is important. And then while all this is going on, you got to be thinking, you've got to be rotating, you've got to be adjusting. The offense could be lying to you, and you got to follow their game plan.
So let's talk about a few of the rules now. Are there first downs, or what will be recognized as a first down? How about scoring? When I get into that 20-yard end zone, how many points do I get? How long is this game?
So the pro game is 4 quarters with a longer halftime. The collegiate and club game and youth game just has a pause at halftime. And so I'll speak to the professional game. There's a time limit, but scores are only incremented by 1. So every score is worth 1 point.
Okay.
There is no stoppage other than between points. So if I catch a disc in the end zone I'm attacking, my team has 1 more point. Excuse me. And my defense comes on the field. We've got our person to go throw the disc, to do the throw off, the pull. Our defensive line goes out there. So similar to how you've had a special teams would now take the field after the offense is done. And there's about a minute and a half between points. And when the throw goes off, when the pull goes off, the point starts. And the point doesn't stop until a score is made.
Okay.
This has a caveat, though. There are infractions, there are fouls. So in the pro game, in the non-pro game, if you make a foul or if there's a travel similar to basketball, you can't move your plant foot. An infraction is called and play stops and everyone stops where they are and it's dealt with. You can have an infraction and something happens, and then sometimes it can be overruled by the referees or not, or it's allowed kind of thing. Similar to imagine if challenges weren't so out on their own as a game mechanic. It was just kind of within the flow of games.
Yeah.
In the professional game, almost all infractions are yardage penalties. So that does two things. One, there is no stoppage. So your stack, your moving line of scrimmage doesn't stop where it does in the collegiate game. You're able to reset. So if you've got a big jumbled mess and everyone's moving everywhere and there's some confusion, you can move the line over here. You can move the line over here. You can kind of reset your offense. You can audible, right? Every team has their audibles they go into. But what it also does is it speeds things up for viewership. No one wants to watch 90 seconds of a foul, and maybe you get ticky-tacky, and you and the guy, they don't like each other, and you fouled me, so I'm going to push you. And in the non-pro game, that stops things. And that's a little boring to watch two grown men argue.
When you talk about a couple of guys who don't like each other, you have a nemesis on a team? Is there something that you don't particularly get along with when you see them?
Not a whole lot of bad blood in Ultimate. Let me think. Yeah, nemesis. Don't want to call it out. There's the Southeast isn't exactly known for its sportsmanship. And while I went to Florida Tech, which was not a big school, it's kind of hard to hate the little guy. If you're going the equivalent of 3-13 on your season, if you're not making any roads into the playoffs, who hates the Browns? I love the Browns. So Cleveland, yeah, right. I'm talking to the guy. We're having a once in a century year here. There's a couple guys in Florida I weren't big fans of. The rest of the country wasn't a big fan of Florida, to be totally honest. Guys who would, like I said, there's win at all costs, and then there's like really cheating and kind of pushing up against the honor system that non-professional Ultimate exists in. The refs haven't been around for more than a decade or so. The league started in 2012, so you can kind of, the league might not like me saying this, but you can kind of get up in the ref's face, and it doesn't always have the strong repercussions that it would of an immediate ejection. I've seen people ejected. I know a guy who played on my team, and I played against him actually. When I played on the Cannons, he was on my team for a year. I've seen him get thrown out of a game because he body slammed another guy to the ground. Yeah, exactly. No one's wearing pads, and while it's not a contact sport, we'll call it a contact sport, but it's not a collision sport. So similar to basketball, sometimes you're just slapping hands and bodying and elbows, and they let the boys play. But there's no shoulder lowering. There shouldn't be shoulder lowering.
Like rugby, it's not a version of rugby or something like that.
No, I've seen a couple guys get speared. Especially when they haven't been looking. I've got a couple concussions, but if a guy spears a guy, he's a pariah immediately of the team, of the game, of the community. The community is huge, but like I said, it's.
I meant to ask you, how long are those quarters? Since you're playing 4 quarters at the professional level.
It's been so long here.
What are you, 15-minute quarters?
Yeah, I didn't even look up. It's 15. I'm pretty sure it's 15. Might be 12. I think it's 15. I don't even know. It's not telling me. Yeah, the AUDL, the ownership, my teammates, hopefully are going to be giving me a hard time here.
When's the season start up for you?
The season was supposed to start on April 4th was our opening weekend, which, a couple things happened in early April, late May. So that didn't bode so well. 12-minute quarters, 4 12-minute quarters. There you go.
Okay.
I knew that. I was just making sure you were paying attention. So the season runs from April. A normal season runs from April through July, and there's a brief playoff bracket where there's multiple divisions. We actually went through a division realignment over the winter in January, so we haven't tested that out. And then it culminates in a championship weekend. And it's a little weird coming from other sports. When there's a single event, it's probably a few weeks off from the postseason or from any semblance of the regular season, and it's this big standalone single game thing. The AUDL championship weekend is in one city, and it takes place on Saturday and Sunday, and it's a Final Four format.
Oh, nice.
So your top four teams meet, and there's a semifinals on Saturday, and there's a finals on Sunday. Now, as a quick aside, the pro format, where we play one game in a weekend and sometimes double headers Saturday, Sunday, especially for the traveling teams.
Yeah.
That is sort of a carryover from non-professional ultimate, which is played in tournament style. I know basketball and soccer and softball and other sports have their tournament styles, but it's almost like passing league, right? So you've got passing league. It's a little less intense than the full game.
Okay.
There's, a dozen, 24, whatever it is, teams will go to a single city, and you'll get 3, 5, 7 games in a weekend. And it's a great thing to see. First of all, you get to work your depth. You get to try whole new things on as a coach. You get to try to reach into the playbook, see who can do what. But you also get to kind of scout other teams. And so collegiate ultimate and club ultimate and youth ultimate are organized into these tournaments where you travel to another city, and you have 3 to 5 tournaments a season, and you play 4 to 6, 4 to 7 games in a weekend. But of course, the AUDL bar, a larger field. You're kind of skimming off the top athletes. It's a little more intense. There's a few things, like I said, the yardage penalties instead of the stoppage kind of make things a little more intense. And I've played some tournaments. I played some really difficult tournaments and some really difficult hot Florida weather with not a whole lot of substitutes and bench players. And an AUDL game is super tiring, even if you're not playing every point, even if you're on the second D line or something. It's very, very tiring.
Where do you play your games at the professional level? Do you play in a college stadium, or do where do you play?
So professional level, there are college stadiums and some high school stadiums. For the Cannons, which used to be in Jacksonville and then moved to Tampa, they used to play there was like a nice prep school, which had a nicer stadium than some colleges, than my college it did. I know that the Washington, D.C. Breeze, they play at Catholic. So it's a franchise model, the AUDL is. And so each of I think we're up to like 25 teams now. It's kind of on them to go negotiate with whether it's municipal park, whether it's a high school or a college, to get their own stadiums. I know that some championship weekends have been played at professional soccer stadiums. They've even had showcase games actually during NFL halftimes. So a little bit of everything.
Do you have an ownership group, or are there individual owners, and are you guys paid at the professional level? Anything?
I'll answer the first question first. There is an ownership group. They franchise. Probably, I'm speaking from a point of ignorance here. There are owners. There are team owners and league owners, and there's a little bit of crossover between that. I know some of the Toronto and Madison, Wisconsin owners, I believe, own some of the league itself. But the city will buy a franchise. So I know whatever it is, half a dozen guys who bought the Tampa franchise after Jacksonville sold it. One's a software guy, one's an IT guy, one is a construction company guy, or someone else has a small software business and a lot of connections in the local small business community. So what they are, they're community players, they're community people, we all know them. And then the payment, that's a good one. So Ultimate is basically in the same situation that football was 100 years ago. They would go work their jobs, and then they'd go play football, and they'd probably smoke cigarettes at halftime. Less cigarettes for us. So Ultimate's full of nurses and engineers and software people and accountants and teachers. I'm an engineer, and I can't wait till the day ends so I can go outside and, whether it's train on my own or can't wait to get out Friday so I can go play with my buddies, play with my teammates, or go watch or go coach. There, of course, is a financial incentive to playing the sport. I think everyone does it for the love of it. I couldn't tell you a single person who does it for the money. That's kind of an inside joke with us. They cover, at the pro level, they cover our travel, they cover our housing, they've got, medical staff, and they've got organizational staff, and they cover our gear, so I didn't have to pay for these sweet threads. And there is a stipend that goes between, not stipend, there is a paycheck per game. It kind of varies with each franchise. So there are some small paychecks, usually in the double or triple digits per game. There are some bonuses for playoffs and the like. But like I said, no one's really making money off this. I don't know if there's many people putting food on the table. I will say that there have been some, it's not super public knowledge, but there have been some 5-figure salaries for some of the superstars. Again, the Tom Brady, Antonio Brown tier players, I couldn't tell you. I'd probably assume less than 10 of them. But, the Dallas franchise, the Dallas Roughnecks, several years ago did the superstar thing. They put, they had a lot of money. They brought in a lot of people. And when you bring in the superstars, they tell their buddies who are superstars, and they put a team together, and they, kicked everyone else's ass. New York, the New York Empire, same kind of thing. There's a lot of guys. There's a team house where a couple of them live together, and a lot of them, I'm sure, being paid. Several of them are being paid a handsome wage, or what we Ultimate players consider handsome. So, like I said, we have growing pains. Most people have full-time jobs.
Who's the face of the game? If I,
yeah,
you keep mentioning like Brady. So at some point, Brady was the face of the NFL. I don't think so anymore. LeBron, face of the NBA. Questionably, Mike Trout, face of Major League Baseball. Who's the face of the AUDL?
That's a good question. We've, probably got 2 right now. I'll speak to a third who was the kind of face of the sports, and then morphed into the face of the AUDL, and that was Bo Kittridge. When I was growing up, there was this one low resolution grainy video of him jumping over a guy when he was here in Colorado, and I was like, wow, this is Ultimate, this is the future kind of thing. He was a track athlete, and he plays AUDL. He still plays now. He's at his ripe old age of late 30s or something, 37. And now I'll give it to 2 guys. One of them plays for DC, Rowan McDonald. And he's that prototypical kind of lanky, what do you call it? That lanky kind of track body. Yeah. But he has springs in his shoes, or he paid someone to put springs in or something. He's a monster athlete, and he turned from a monster athlete into a monster athlete and a really good thrower. I don't know the guy personally, but his kind of persona is he's a goofball. A little bit of that frisbee is for hippies kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's competitive as hell. He's super good. He's a great teammate. It looks like, and I hear from interviews and phenomenal thrower, phenomenal athlete. And the other one is Jonathan Helton, who plays for San Diego and played last year and plays this year. I know him personally. He's really good people. He goes by the nickname Goose, which I'm going to embarrass him now because he did tell us why he's called Goose, and it's because he might have made this up. In college or in high school, his voicemail sounded like a Mother Goose kind of weird high-pitched voice or something like that. I might be butchering it, but they gave him this weird Goose nickname, and he's built like a linebacker. I don't think he'd beat Terrell Suggs in a 1-to-1, but he's got, he's like 5'10", 5'11", definitely more of a strength athlete, but he's still got springs. And this guy doesn't stop, his like big Ultimate thing where Rowan was like athletic and kind of got into the throwing. Jonathan Helton didn't go to a big school. for Ultimate. He started playing when the league showed up, I think 2012, 2013. He's been defensive player of the year for a couple of years. But he's a phenomenal athlete, and he teaches everyone around him, the athletic kind of knowledge he has. But, he's past 5-10 years, he's grown to know the game, the sport. He's a great thrower as well. So where you have these specialists, I'm not going to say he's a generalist by any means, but you have these specialists, they grow and they add different parts to their game.
Yeah.
And so Rowan and Goose are probably the top two right now. New York's got half a dozen, but I like those two. We'll talk DC and San Diego for now.
Okay, sounds good to me. How about this? How did working at NASA mix together with you playing professional frisbee at the time?
The short version is not well.
Huh?
I said the short version is not well. No. So I went to school and studied kind of hard and got an aerospace engineering degree. Ultimate was my focus before, in front of work, in front of school, in front of girlfriend, in front of family. It was just frisbee. I'm sure you can relate as far as football goes. And I'm sure athletes can relate. You're eat, sleep, breathing the game. So when you graduate, I didn't get a job right away, but I was lucky to land a job as a contractor for NASA at the Space Center. The school is about an hour away from the Space Center. And there's a lot of crossover between the university and them. To be totally honest, for the first 2 years, I used it as a vessel to play Ultimate. Okay. I'm sure plenty of people don't want to leave college their senior year. I didn't want to leave the team. College partying is cool and all, but I love the sport. I love the culture. I love the people. So I kind of went from playing and transitioned slowly into coaching. And while I was working full time, I had flexible schedules. So I could take off early on a Friday. I could work 410s and go travel with the team that I coached, or go travel to practice for, professional for the Cannons. So like I said, I used it as a vessel to kind of be able to afford driving around the Southeast with my team, staying in hotels, stuff like that.
That's interesting to me. Why did you move out west then? Was it the job opportunity? Is that what happened to you? You got that job opportunity? And how did you latch on with the Growlers? Because from what we talked about earlier, they're the two-time Western Division champions. And I know you said COVID might have had a little something to do with that, but how'd that transpire for you?
No one knocked us off our pedestal, so we'll call the Growlers two-time. Yeah. So I'll give you the medium answer. Stop me if you want to discuss a certain point here. I wasn't a huge fan of the playing opportunities in Florida. So the Cannons moved to Tampa, and I tried out in 2018 and made the team. I'm not a superstar by any stretch of the imagination. What do you call it? One of my best friends actually flattered me by calling me the Shane Battier of Ultimate. I try not to be too much of a generalist, but you got to use your brain to kind of make up for the stature. I'm a short, nerdy Jewish guy, and that's in my blood. So I kind of had to work to get playtime. So I didn't feel like I was really going in with the Cannons. And as I sit here knocking on the door of 30 years, I decided I should probably put my career ahead of me for once. I had just gotten laid off around September. Keep in mind the season starts in April and tryouts are generally in January. So I just got laid off in September, and I was looking at jobs and applying all over the place. And I applied to a job. Honestly, I didn't even remember applying to it. And as I got through the interview and as I talked with people in the company, leadership, and just kind of people down the chain in the company, I got all kinds of good vibes, every green flag in the book. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just take the leap. I've been in Florida 10 years after leaving the DC area. I'm not someone who likes to up and change and move on a dime. I'm very conservative minded in that sense.
Yeah.
But this was too good. This was too good an opportunity. And I decided for my career first. Kids, if you're listening, put your career first starting on day one. Put some money away in your 401k and you'll be much happier. There's plenty of time for games later. Um, and I've been with this company called Paragon since January, and I love it. Everything's great about it. It's where I want to be in my career. But frisbee's still kind of cool, and I'm still eating, breathing, and sleeping it. So the first thing I did, I don't think I accepted the offer letter yet. I looked up who's the closest AUDL team to Tucson, Arizona. And there were, there's an Austin team and there's a Dallas team. And then there's San Diego. And San Diego is a cool 6-hour drive through the desert, over the mountains. Yeah, I can do 6 hours. I went to school in Melbourne, and which is east of Orlando. And I drove to Atlanta and Raleigh and Wilmington and, Decatur, and 6 hours, I can do that. So then I guess I sent in my offer letter and told them I want the job. And the Sunday before I was slated to start my new job, like I said, putting career first, the Sunday before that, I had flown out to San Diego to go to tryouts. Tampa and the South weren't the top of the league, shall I say. We had some good years. We'd gone to the playoffs and played some really good teams. We handed that Dallas superstar team their first loss as a franchise.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't on the field of that, but practice against those guys. And like I said, I'm kind of bottom tier. I'm AUDL caliber, but I'm kind of bottom tier there. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to put aside what I think I am. I'm going to put aside my past and I know I'm good enough to make this San Diego team, and the West is a different beast kind of thing. And, there's years when the AFC is the only, is the end all be all. There's years when the NFC is the end all be all. And, I had a great tryout. I just decided this is something I really want to do. I don't care if I'm 6 hours. I don't care if there's only 2 other people in the state of Arizona on this team. This is something I really want to do, and I put my mind to it.
It must be kind of, well, I don't want to say easy for you, but being that you're most likely working from home, I can safely assume.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little easier. If you have to travel out to San Diego to do something, that you travel, work from wherever you are, and then you're there to practice and whatnot. I mean, it should make that more convenient for you, obviously, going forward. Where do you see the AUDL going? I mean, where is this league developing into? I know you said there's 25 teams now. You've got some superstars you named. You shared rules with us. You shared a championship format with us. Where do you see it going?
That's a good question. So, you ask any 10 people, you're going to get 11 opinions. 10 ultimate players can get 11 opinions. So we actually just had a players meeting. Unfortunately, I was not invited to the owners meeting, but we did have a players meeting recently. And as you're familiar, everything's kind of up in the air for COVID. On the kind of 10,000 foot level, the league has just signed, another deal. There's games on ESPN. They have recently acquired a production company they were working hand in hand with, a video production company. So the first couple of years was crappy footage, but things are getting a lot better. Camera, we got to teach the ESPN camera guys how the sport works, so we don't have all the football and basketball angles.
Sure.
The franchises are kind of set, and the storylines tell themselves. So the 2 big things are, number one, I guess the storylines, right? You need to have people. You need to tell a story. We don't need ESPN wall-to-wall 24-hour coverage. Skip Bayless yelling at whoever the hell he's yelling at this week. But storylines are good. So, you've got Rowan, or you've got Goose, or you've got Bo. What are they up to? How are they training during COVID? Is big. And they've got their Instagram stories going. They've got whatever they're moving on Twitter. I think it's mostly Instagram, which I don't have one right now, but AUDL is big in that. It's following along these people and their storylines. And we're in this kind of weird space where all these athletes, they're down to earth people. They're not untouchable. While some are phenomenal athletes and excellent players and take tons of time to perfect their craft, I almost feel like NFL players and NBA players and even MLS players are almost a little untouchable and kind of, LeBron, I don't know, could I sit down and have a beer with LeBron? Maybe. So it's creating these storylines and bringing in bringing in non-ultimate fans. Ultimate's great. The ultimate community is great. Youth has been blowing up the past decade, whether that's the youth leagues, the youth, the national governing body, whether that's the AUDL putting on leagues and camps and getting these superstars and these faces out there. The youth sport has been going up. College ultimate started as a little more of a Ivy League privilege kind of thing. Your Cornells, your Dartmouths, your Stanfords. It's broadening out its base, of course, now. And there's actually a good push, which I think is great, to really highlight the what we call BIPOC. I don't know if you've heard the term, but it's Black, Indigenous, people of color. It's a little more inclusive than people of color. Highlight their stories. Because if you see a bunch of rich white kids from Dartmouth playing, okay, cool. It's a cool sport. You can go watch some cool plays. But if you see someone like you playing, it's a lot more, it really gets you, you can build a similar connection, same goes with female players.
Sure.
There's some female leagues, women's league, which started up and are having some trouble, of course, because they had some big plans and some good teams together, but COVID kind of put a hit to all that.
When you say that, though, I can safely assume that you have no females that are playing in the AUDL?
Correct. There are 2 women's leagues, and I'm not the best source on this. A good friend of mine is in charge of, I don't know what level she's in charge of. She is on the, one of the decision makers for the Western Ultimate League. And then the PUL is the other Ultimate League. And they've had a couple seasons, with half a dozen teams, Raleigh, New York. There's some big expansion plans to go beyond this, in 2020 and 2021. But again, COVID kind of put the brakes on that. The college game is men's and women's. And then the club game is, as well as the youth game, are men's, women's, and mixed. There is a co-ed division.
Okay.
But like I said, the AUDL, this professional, where the Growlers play, where I play, is a men's game. There have been women players, and you can't sleep on them. And you're going to get the locker room bullshit about sleeping on them.
Yeah.
But I've seen some very good players who are very close to me, who've been my mentors, get torched by women, on teams they didn't respect. I might smile internally during the game, but I think that's pretty cool.
How many more years you see yourself playing, or do you think you'll move into coaching?
That's a good question. So the professional game goes, kind of opposite the collegiate season. So while the club season might be over the summer, the professional season is also over the summer, from like April to July, April to August. College has been traditionally January to May, but it's been working its way backwards in like a growing preseason kind of thing. So you can kind of coach at the same time. As far as how long I see myself playing, I don't think I'm going to be a peak athlete. I think I'm kind of peak athlete right now as I sit working from home and not playing the game during 2020. But there's so much more knowledge and kind of picking and choosing my moments that are available to me. I don't need to be the 19-year-old knucklehead who's running when I can be the person who utilized that short burst for a specific purpose. I don't want to give you a year. I'd like to be playing till I'm 33, 35. I feel like I have some unfinished business, both personally, but also I want to be part of a team that does something great.
Right.
I think the Growlers are really good. There's no traditional hub of ultimate in Southern California, as far as like a powerhouse like there is in like Seattle, New York, etc. So I want to be part of something good and really see how good I can do as an individual.
That's an excellent answer. I got to tell you, I'm super proud of you.
Thanks.
It's excellent talking to you. Just sharing with my viewers, I coached Mark, as he said, in football in high school, and he was always the kid who would run through a brick wall for you. And he has told you on many, many times in this interview that he's not the biggest guy in the world. So to see where he has progressed, I definitely have no problem seeing him as a very intelligent guy working for dynamic companies and doing very well from that aspect of life. But it definitely makes me very proud to see where you have come as an athlete and where you see yourself going forward. So I just want to let you know that. Let's take this question for you now. If you were not playing professional, ultimate disc, what would you be doing? What would you be doing athletically, I should say?
Probably soccer. Like I said, if I could get to that level, I find there's a lot of crossover in the, opening up space, attacking space, off ball movement. There's some of that in basketball as well. And football, there's plenty of off ball movement,
Yeah.
Whether or not it's for tricky, cute plays. Probably soccer.
That'd be interesting. That'd be really interesting because you've got that dynamic already with what you're doing, in terms of size, speed, that from that athletic standpoint. I love hearing that.
Don't get me wrong, as an inspiration to 5'6" Jewish nerds everywhere. As I get in my 30s here, I can still become a better athlete. I'm working out here. Plenty of the Growlers are also working out on their own through COVID. I know a lot of AUDL players. We're past the point of pure athleticism carrying anyone, so almost everyone trains. And I know that while I might joke, not jokingly, about my stature and not having the best genetics on the planet, and watching film and doing chalk talks with friends, being able to improve my bounce, being able to improve my side to side, my 40 time, that's super important to me.
But you're not going to get to play till you're 35 if you don't do those things. And nobody says you have to stop at 35. How many guys do you see at the professional level in various sports that are continuing to play at a very high level as they continue to get older? And your sport is just as demanding as any other sports. When you are running nonstop and you have to make athletic moves on the field and understand your role out there, it's just as demanding as any other sport, whether it's the NFL or Major League Baseball or whatever.
Everyone's a receiver and everyone's a cornerback. If you don't have that kind of defensive under hip dissociating, quick feet of a cornerback, you're toast. God forbid you cough up the rock, you're toast.
Mark, I do a final segment with all my guests, and mine is called Decade Definers. And I want you to tell me the 3 most exciting times you've had playing sports throughout the course of your life to this point. Because I know we talked a little bit about some of the things that you've done that have been exciting for you in college with playing ultimate disc and in the AUDL. But how about in general, if you had to look back and just pull 3 things from your lifetime that have been exciting?
Right, I'll start with number 3 here, which I could be interviewed by anyone, and I would still say this would be in my top 3. I played football for you senior year, and last game, I wasn't a starter, but you're right. I was scrappy. I had heart, or what do they call it? High motor. Yeah. And we had a game against Blake, which was, we weren't a football school to start. And you took some good steps to turn that around. And Blake was not a football school to start. And I think we had locked up our playoff berth. No, not yet.
That game was the decision.
Halftime, right? It was like halftime or something. We got the call, something like that. And, I played a little bit here and there. I remember we got blown out at homecoming and, let's put Mendelevitz in. I played a little here and there. And that was my first game where I got put in for a full half. And I got put on, as most of my PT was as a cornerback. And I remember playing the far side corner near the opposing team sideline. And the entire time, one of my good buddies who was playing linebacker kept running up the middle, kept getting in the box, and they would kept pitching or rolling out and running it around the side. And, me one-on-one with the receiver, and it would the ball would keep coming to my side, and it'd be runs, and I'd get held up, and they'd run the ball 5, 10, whatever yards. And, all the kids there are jawing at me, run it over here, this guy's kick his ass kind of thing. which is great stuff to hear if you know not to be intimidated by it. I'm only going to say I was a little intimidated. And it sticks out clear as day to me. This is 12 years old, and there was a pass play. I'm sure Blake, I don't know who was in, I don't know who their receiver was. They weren't on the same page, but there's a pass play, and I remember being that same left side corner, getting into my back pedal and opening my hips up, almost as if to guard a 12-yard post, and opening right and breaking right. And a ball was thrown, and I broke right and caught a pick and ran, I don't remember, 30 yards or something. Yeah. And that was just such an endorphin rush. I had told myself for JV and varsity, and when you came on board, when Rockville High School kind of got serious, don't ever show your weakness kind of thing. But I was tired as hell. I'd never played a half of football. And so I ran 20, 30, 40 yards, and the linemen, there was, the rest of the players in the field were coming to tackle me. I planted my helmet into some lineman's gut, and I ran off the field and told Coach Wheeler, I'm tired, I need to get out. And I don't know if he heard me because I was tired, and because I think the game had ended or 3 seconds left or something. That was kind of sealed the deal. We were winning by plenty, but that sealed the deal. And I told Coach Wheeler, all right, fine. You see, I'm weak. I'm out. I'm tired. And he turned me around and pointed me at the scoreboard and said, game's over or something. So that was awesome. And like I said, that sticks in my head. That's been ironed in my memory.
One of my proudest moments as a coach was that, to be honest with you. It was just fantastic to see somebody who worked hard, came to our summer workouts, bought into what we were selling at the time to do that. It seems like eons ago, but
no, I appreciate that. Yeah,
I agree.
Second, I love being the scrappy underdog, individually or as a team. Yeah. Speaking of scrappy underdogs, the second was in 2013. Florida Tech, once again, was not the best school in the I'll say in the division in the state of Florida. And so there's 3 tiers of playoffs. There's sectionals, regionals, and nationals. We're in the Southeast region. Florida Tech was in the Southeast region, and the region is built from several sections. And so we're in the Florida section.
Yeah.
Each section sends 3 to 5 teams to the region, and the region sends 1 to 2 or 3 to the nationals, depending on how good the region is. Excuse me. 2013, we're playing against UCF, University of Central Florida. They've got 50, 60,000 people. We've got less than 3,000 undergrads. So I think their coach was lying on the sideline, flirting with some, girls from the school that was hosting or something. They're all checked out, right? They're just playing Florida Tech. This is an easy game. This is our down game between Florida State and Miami or UF or whatever it is. And so we're like, all right, we flip, we get the flip, we win the flip, we call offense. We're like, all right, we're gonna set this play. We've got one really good athlete on our team. We're gonna jack it to him, and it's gonna be awesome. And we're gonna make a bunch of noise, even though they've got an army and they've got sideline support and cheerleaders and everything.
Yeah.
We're gonna have this sweet play, and we're gonna do it. We get the disc, we turn it over. And they march down the field to our end zone. And we somehow miraculously make an end zone stand. And we get the disc back. And I don't know if there's wind or what. The collegiate field's 70 yards long instead of 80. And I still can't throw 70 yards consistently right now without someone guarding me. But we get the disc back. I get it in my hand, and I see one of our rookies, not the super athlete we had called and dialed up to play for, but one of our rookies who had played for like 6 weeks or something, puffing and puffing down the left hash there. And everything, all the stars aligned, and I managed to throw 70 yards into the end zone, and we went absolutely bonkers, right? Like, this is the best throw. I couldn't have drawn this up if I was writing a movie, that kind of thing. We went on to score 8 points. Like I said, the collegiate game is to score cap.
Yep.
So we scored 8. They beat us 13-8. But, we had no business scoring more than 2, that kind of thing. We scored more points than them, than Florida State, than University of Florida, than all the other big dogs who should have been in the semifinals and the finals. So that was awesome. We didn't beat Goliath, but we definitely punched him in the jaw. And seeing him stumble, seeing them get a little upset during halftime.
Yeah.
That's what I live for.
Mark, how many fans, before we go on with your last decade definer incident, playing incident, how many fans are in the stands for your competition? I mean, at the pro level, do you get 5,000 people? Do you get,
there might be 5,000 at the championship weekend in the pro level. Like I said, reaching out to bring non-ultimate players in is super important and needs to be the focus, the first, second, and third focus of the AUDL.
Yeah.
For revenue is great, but also to get the sport out there. And it's been improving, but getting 4 figures at a non-playoff game is a struggle.
Yeah.
Collegiate doesn't get that unless it's some of the big tournaments. And I was kind of joking when I said cheerleaders. It's the girlfriends, or if there's a team mom or team moms. I mean, UCF was huge. UCF always traveled with an army. We would go up there with 10 people. 10 people, and 8 of them, 8.5 are healthy or something. That was Florida Tech. UCF would travel with an army. Maybe their developmental squad, their JV equivalent, would be there. Maybe the women's team was on a bye game and they would go support them. So the collegiate game might have no one, or it might have a few hundred. Pro game is a little better than that.
Yeah. All right. So your last defining moment as a youth, you gave me the one at Rockville where you had the pick. You gave me your game against UCF. Give me your third one.
I had a hard time with this between the San Diego tryout and my first Cannons tryout in 2016. I'm going to go with the 2016 one. I was a little less kind of sure of myself back then. So the Cannons had a franchise. The Cannons franchise opened in 2015, a few years after the AUDL, and there's a previous league that started before that. I always knew I was okay, good. Dare I say I was good, but I wasn't in the boys club. I didn't go one of these big universities, so they didn't know me. As well as I didn't really know how good I was to match up against the best in the state, all in the same field, right? Everything's different. You can match up against someone who's really good, but when everyone up and down the roster is your level or better, that's some serious competition. I like to think I play up. I kind of rise to the occasion. And so 2016, it's in Jacksonville. It's in January, and it's snowing, if you can believe that. So of course all the native Floridians are freaking out because, what the hell is this? I was a battle-hardened Washington D.C. native, so the flakes would land on you and melt. But it's the people are wearing shorts there. I read the weather forecast, so I had plenty of layers. And I had been training for a while, and I'd asked a few friends and one of the guys at Florida Tech is one of the current part owners. He was kind of a mentor of mine. He's been a captain of the Cannons for a while. I was talking with him, so there's equal training between just the sport itself, the full 7-on-7 game. There's a smaller version, similar to passing league. We go 3-on-3 with this narrow field, or maybe like a short field.
Yeah.
But there's also measurables. There's, it's a combine. So you've got your 40, you've got your vertical, you've got your serpentine, you've got your 5-10-5 shuttle. So we kind of steal a little bit from the NFL combine, but as well, there's some ultimate specific things. I know San Diego did like a 30-yard dash because that's more applicable to ultimate speed than football speed.
Sure.
So there's some training for that. I trained for my 40, I trained for my vertical. And I played ultimate. You got to know how to play the damn game. I don't care how fast you are, how high you can jump.
Yeah.
And I get there, and in one of the first drills, my cleat breaks. Luckily I have an extra, but like it's heavy and bulky, and this is not the thing I need, right? You to have something like that break that you weren't really thinking about. But as we're going through these drills, I did well on some of the measurables. And I, did well in some of the matchups. it's not all 7-on-7. There might be like we're going to throw it deep, we're going to float it, and you and one defender got to go out there and just body up, and who comes down with it, comes down with it.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of nuance. It's just one-on-one deep drill, and some people love it, some people hate it. Some people get Randy Mossed, some people get bodied out, whatever it is. And so I did pretty well on some of these things. There's throwing drills, like I said. Everyone in our sport's a throwing athlete. So unfortunately, there's no big culmination. There's no pick. There's no giant deep throw to the end zone to the rookie. But I got called back, and I got a offer for a contract. I made the team, and I thought that I was ecstatic. I thought that was super. I put in hard work. I put my doubts aside. I'm someone who very much is in their own head. On the negativity side of things, as I'm sure many athletes that you've coached are. And I just put up. I kicked some ass, and I made the team, and that was awesome. That's one of the best things I've done.
I can understand why that would be at the top of your totem pole in terms of sports in your lifetime. Hey, Mark, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. I know it's like the middle of the day out there in where you're in Arizona right now.
Tucson, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the middle of the day. But thanks for giving us your time.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation.
Telling us all about the AUDL. I hope our listeners are able to. When we get going again, how can we follow along with what's going on with the AUDL?
So you visit theaudl.com. The Twitter handle I'll have you throw up on the show notes here. And then, just Google it on YouTube, search it on YouTube. There's lots of great games. If you want a quick version, if you want a quick sample of the game and you're not sure to get into it or not, the Washington, D.C. versus Raleigh game is an instant classic. It was a game of the week kind of thing. And then the San Diego versus Los Angeles as well is one of those instant classics. Great game. The San Diego won. Not quite nail biter, but close to get to playoff championship weekend. So go check out the AUDL. And like I said, there's 25 teams, so they're probably in the city that you live in.
Yeah.
Give Ultimate a shot. It's a ton of fun. It's a great community. It's a great sport.
It's a fast sport, and everybody likes the fast sports today.
It's fast paced, lots of cool offensive stuff going on and defensive. But
thanks again. Good luck to you in your continued career, and we'll be looking for you in the AUDL coming close to us wherever we live. So thanks for being our guest, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you very much.